Hey, everybody. It's Saturday, November 30th, 2024, the day at the weekend of Thanksgiving here in the United States. And I just wanted to get on and make a video I was just thinking about some things about the election and democracy and community organizing and stuff like that. Um, Yeah, so I'm just kind of doing stream of consciousness here. Don't have anything really totally organized or thought out. And I hadn't made any videos in a while, um, just because I've been really busy and kind of down about the results of the election and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what's going on here in my world. And yeah, so it's interesting when we talk about democracy, right? We often in the United States think of democracy as something that like we started or created. That's not actually true. And as someone with some indigenous ancestry, I'm proud to say the Iroquois Confederacy was founded in 1142, the first known democracy in North America. And the United States took a lot of the concepts from the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in creating our Constitution and Declaration of Independence. So I just always think that's important to point out that so much of it came from people that were already here when the European colonizers came to this land and took it over. So that's an important concept, isn't it? So, yeah, growing up, I always loved learning about democracy and the Constitution and that stuff. And I've always had an interest in politics in one way or another. Some of it, I think, was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was always pretty opinionated about politics. And she was very devout in her Christianity. She was Baptist and went to a church where there were a lot of conservative Republicans, but she was always a Democrat. So I always liked how she always stood up for what she believed in, even among a lot of people at her church who thought differently than her. So I think that's part of where I maybe got some of my interest and commitment to not so much politics, but even just like doing what's right, which really, in my opinion, is more about governance than politics, which I do talk about a lot on the Grant Diva channel and my blogs and things like that. So there is a way, this stuff's also interconnected, isn't it? Maybe that's kind of the theme of what I'm wanting to talk about today, even though I wasn't totally clear about it when I started recording. Yeah, I think it's the interconnectedness of things. And I think in some ways, if you really think about it, look at the Iroquois Confederacy that had their democracy starting in 1142, and most indigenous cultures, a foundation is the interconnectedness of everything. It's just built in that everything's interconnected and everybody's going to work together for the betterment of everybody and in alignment with nature. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple, yet look at our country. Oh, I have to take a break and answer this call. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, oh gosh, I got distracted and now I forgot what I was talking about. Kind of how our indigenous cultures look at the interconnectedness of everything and democracy. Yeah. So I think that I'm kind of making this video just to talk. Oh, governance. I was talking about governance. That's right. So yeah, governance. Um, so that's like how stuff gets done, right? The actual day-to-day implementation of government stuff. But it feels to me like with the results of the November 5th election that there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and there's an importance of focusing on the interconnectedness of things from the individual level to the broader level. I think that's kind of where my head's going. And in addition to the stuff I do as a grant writer, community organizing, work on politics, etc., do I have been reading tarot cards for many years. So I've noticed since the election that a lot of the psychics, tarot readers, astrologers, the spiritual folks, I feel like they're becoming community organizers and are actually going to be really instrumental in helping to save democracy. It's a very interesting phenomenon that's going on. And it might not be something that they're all necessarily even like doing purposefully or totally consciously, but it's a theme I've seen and kind of the people that I follow. Um, and even in some of the kind of readings and things I've seen. And I guess for me, it's like it's interesting because I have a master's from Harvard and I have a master's from Boston University, one in social work from BU and one in public health from Harvard. And I've always been very focused on kind of research and the scientific method and all of that kind of stuff. And, very immersed in governance and what we have to do to get things done. And I've had a tendency over the years to struggle a little bit with the part of me that does kind of the tarot cards and things, almost thinking some people might think it's like silly or whatever. And astrology, I love astrology. I haven't formally studied it, but I know enough to where I could do people's charts and things like that. And it's all very interesting. And as I've gotten older, I've made more peace with the fact that it's not a either or kind of thing. It's a and thing. And many of the tarot card readings I've done over the years have been for professionals in lots of fields like law and medicine and public health and science people and et cetera, et cetera. And what I found is that most people, once they have a tarot reading, they're like, oh, this is really interesting. It's a new way of looking at things, a different way. It's not an absolute, and it doesn't discount the reality of rational things and things like that. In fact, in many ways, tarot, if you studied even the history of tarot and divination techniques in general, one would find that it has a psychological background in many ways. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, was very interested in divination techniques, and he had some theories about how he thought that there was something about the ritual of divination techniques that at kind of the moment that people are pulling the cards, something like their subconscious kind of takes over and kind of knows what to do based on the kind of concept of in the universe that there's, a universal infinite intelligence that we're all connected to, but that our conscious mind is only a small part of who we are. And our subconscious mind, which is a much bigger part of who we are, actually has more kind of power and influence. So that's kind of some background about it. But I'm just loving watching the things I've been seeing for the last few weeks of the more spiritual community, linking kind of individual, societal level things, global things, talking about issues, but in a real rational kind of way of things that we're seeing empirically going on, and also linking it with our intuitive or psychic abilities. So I felt very inspired by that. So I guess that's part of why I'm making this video to just kind of put this down and put this out there as something that I think it's important to start focusing on. So, yeah, I think I'm going to be using even my background in community organizing, governance, public health, social work, all of those things to think about moving forward and sharing information and educating people, maybe on how even these things all fit together. Um, and even maybe delving into some of these issues, like real life issues, like, Project 2025 is a huge threat. So how do we dig into that? And then also use our intuition to kind of help guide us? How do we maybe even think about one of the things I think it might be useful to think about is how do we start educating people? And I don't mean this from like a patronizing point of view, like, oh, we're going to educate people. Not that. But there is a level of educating and increasing awareness so people understand how things fit together, right? The interconnectedness. Because I'm shocked. I'm still shocked when I see things that indicate how many people don't have the basic understanding of like how government works, like how the three branches work and policy, right? Like any individual person, anybody could come to a workshop and learn some basic stuff about legislative advocacy and policy and get the name, phone number, and email of a local legislator and go meet with them, send them an email, something. So I feel like there's a way we got to build up. We got to build up this movement of people like coming together to, stand up for policy stuff. Like a lot of this stuff does have to do with policy. And I think part of why we're in the space we're in now is a lot of people they're disconnected from all that. They're disconnected from politics. They're disconnected from how governance things affects them. And let me tell you, it affects all of us, whether you like it or not. And you get these things where people are like, I don't want politics to come be the thing that messes up families, or, we all have the right to vote for who we want, which is true. You do. But I just think people just kind of brush it off a lot of the time as if it's just politics. And it's like, well, the way the world works, we are affected by, I'm not going to use the word politics, I'll use the word governance. We are affected by governance. Our daily life is deeply affected by governance. And in some ways, I think that it's almost like I don't know if it's unintended, but maybe an unintended outcome that people can be so disconnected from it means that it's actually working really well. It's working so well that people don't feel like they have to really be engaged. So it's like good and bad, right? On the one hand, the stuff's working so well behind the scenes that we don't think about it. On the bad part, people have become so disengaged that they don't even realize the things that are in place to make it where they're able to have all of this freedom, right? Like sometimes think of like the most basic things you think of, like if we didn't have governance, we wouldn't have paved roads, we wouldn't have modern sanitation, we wouldn't have police and fire departments, like stuff that we really take for granted. And then there's deeper things like national security things, the Department of Defense. There's all kinds of things protecting us that we do not know about. And I don't really want to know about necessarily, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. Public health, I'm a public health person. Public health infrastructure protects us every day of our lives, whether we think about it or not. There's all kinds of systems in place that protect us from different kinds of diseases, health threats, all kinds of stuff that's been going on for well over 100 years. So this is just to say that I just feel like we've gotten to this place where it's really time for people to start thinking more about these kind of things and how we can kind of come together and really prepare for what's coming and to band together with like-minded folks to protect our democracy. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if those of us who lean more liberal and have been really worried about the potential of losing our democracy and fascism. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not pretending that I do, but I'm concerned enough about it from things that I've seen, things that I know, and things I've learned over the last decades. I'm concerned enough about it that I'm willing to invest some time and energy in working with like-minded people to do what we can to protect that. So I'm thinking I might even put out a call for folks who might want to join a Zoom at some point and just start talking about these kinds of things and see what ideas people have for a combination of kind of sharing knowledge and doing some skill building around legislative advocacy and looking at ways we can kind of community organize around stuff. So anyway, I think this video is kind of all over the place, but I just wanted to get this out there to start. I've been thinking about this stuff a lot the last few weeks. And yeah, I just wanted to put this out there. So anybody feel free to comment if you have any thoughts or ideas. So I guess the theme is, you know, democracy, saving democracy and acknowledging that it's been around way longer than the United States has actually been around, these principles, and it ain't a guarantee. So we have to do stuff in a coordinated manner to protect it. And governance matters. Okay, so on that note, I hope everybody's having a good weekend. Whether you celebrate Thanksgiving, if you consider it the National Day of Mourning, as many Indigenous people do, or if you're just not into holidays at all, that is totally fine too. So everybody has a wonderful day. Aho. Take care.